Like I said, I avoided reading all the leaks and controversies because I didn't want the game to get spoiled. So playing this, I had no idea what was so controversial, although I did unintentionally hear it was related to an LGBT agenda being pushed in the game. I was really worried there was going to be overt virtue signaling messages and politics, because I don't necessarily like that in my games. I play games to escape, not to be reminded of our current real-world politics. But I didn't feel as though this game tried to push an agenda on me. They weren't being overt in their politics, they were just telling a story where some characters were gay, and one happened to be transgender. To be clear, what bothers me about politics in games, and what I mean about being overt in their politics, is when companies lecture us, or companies take on an activist role. Just like when Activision put that Black Lives Matter disclaimer before entering COD. I don't like this because they are trying to lecture us and overtly push their political agenda on us. And I say this as someone who does support the Black Lives Matter movement. But if politics is in the game because it is how the story is being told, that's fine. In this game, there's politics all over. For example, the Seraphites are fighting the wolves over land. That is inherently political, but it doesn't matter because it doesn't apply to the real world. There are other aspects though that could apply to the real world. And that all matters in how much you want to read into it. For example, you could argue that the developers were making political statements about religious fanatics by the way they were making the scars behave, just like you can say they were making statements about transgender rights when they told a story about a transgender boy being persecuted for wanting to be a male when born a female. Or not, maybe they aren't trying to make a statement and are just telling a story. We all choose how we want to interpret what the story is telling us in this game. For me, the politics did not matter, because I felt that it was part of the story, like I said. And if the developers intended on sending a message, they were so subtle that it didn't even matter to me. Also, I choose not to be offended. It's up to you if you want to be offended or not. And let's think about the outrage over Lev's story. Is it really politics and virtue signaling and pushing an agenda to include a transgender character? Why can't a transgender character be included without it becoming an LGBT agenda that the developers are trying to push on us? There are transgender people that exist in this world. I don't see why it should be a controversy that they be included in a game. Is it because it's newer and unusual? I think some will say that it's not only because they included a trans character, but because part of the story was about this trans character being persecuted for being trans. I think this persecution of Lev fits well in how the scars were portrayed, as religious fanatics that wanted compliance. So I think it's fine to have a trans character, and that part of the story is about this trans character. We do not get outraged when other minorities are put in the game. I don't think people should get outraged now. Anyways, I played this game without knowing what the controversies were. Along the way, here are what I thought it was going to be. We all knew Ellie was a lesbian since the first game, so even though she was having romantic moments with another girl, I thought it could not have been it. There was a guy at one point who called her a dyke and a conflict ensued. I thought this could have been it, as it could be interpreted as the developers trying to virtue signal by denouncing homophobes. Then I saw Dina had armpit hair. That's clearly a feminist influence, but I thought it was such a small detail that it could not have been it. Do these characters look the cleanest? They are in the middle of an infestation and are constantly trying to survive. I don't blame her for not shaving. Then I saw Abby's huge muscles, and I thought to myself, damn, is she a transgender woman? That is someone transitioning from a biological male to a woman? She looks huge! Her arms are bigger than me and I've been lifting weights seriously for 15 years. Anyways, Abby is just muscular. I agree that it's completely unappealing and unrealistic. Women who lift weights don't look like that unless they take steroids. But still, all the hate just because one character doesn't look feminine seems like a petty reason to hate on a game. And then at one point I heard Yara refer to Lev as she, and that the Scars wanted to marry her to one of the men. I thought that was weird because I thought Lev was a guy this whole time, but I assumed I was just confused and I was going to revisit this later. Then I heard the Seraphites call Lev Lily, and I was again really confused, but I didn't click. When Lev was asked why he cut his hair, he said, I don't know. Again, it didn't click that this was a transgender male that shaved his head because he wanted to look like the gender he identified with.
I heard some of your people calling him Lily.
When he explained to me how he felt inside, I told him he had to keep it to himself. But then he shaved his head. Like one of the men. It was suicide.
He wanted to be a soldier like me, but they decided he was to be a wife to one of the elders. It's tradition.
It only registered when I finished the game and started reading why people were mad. I thought to myself, man, I didn't feel as though they were trying to lecture us about transgender rights, they were simply telling a story. But I guess some people are more sensitive than others. It's pretty shady that this small aspect of the game blew up and caused people to review bomb the game. This is such a good game, it doesn't deserve the player review it got. Review bombing a game just because a female character is muscular and another character is transgender is just depressing.